Hi everyone, this is Gamer. We are sticking with Articuno, but we are moving on to Pokemon FireRed. I played very little of this, so I'm expecting myself to take a lot longer to get around. There will be many mistakes to be made, but that's why I'm going in with the legendary bird. Mistakes will be more forgivable as a result. I hope that I can learn a lot from this first run so future runs will be smoother. Articuno has some new tools available this gen, but I also believe that the Elite Four and the Champion will be tougher too. Time will tell how this run will go. I'm treating this mostly as a learning experience, and hopefully I can talk about my mistakes along the way. In terms of moves, Articuno has some nice options. While the starting moves, Gust and Powder Snow are still amazing at the start, we can expect more power spikes for our bird Pokemon. Aerial Ace will be a nice option as a stronger flying move. It's not the strongest flying move, but it never misses and can certainly get the job done, especially with Articuno's decent stats. Water Pulse can be a solid option against fire types, so Articuno already has better coverage this gen. There are also interesting options like Facade and Steel Wing, but I will see if those are necessary or not. The start should be smooth because I more or less know what to do. I think the biggest obstacle for the first couple of runs will be figuring out where to go and what order to do things. Unlike Gold, I don't know most of FireRed. I expect a lot of getting lost and needing to get a guide out, especially if we get to a puzzle that I simply don't have time to solve on my own time. I will also be consulting a guide for TM locations and items like elixirs. Thankfully, you won't be seeing me being a headless chicken. However, I will show things from time to time and talk about what has given me problems. The early game will be pretty straightforward too because I think Articuno has what it takes to beat Brock. Its stats should be solid enough while Geodude and Onix both lack decent special defense. Powder Snow should do the trick. Articuno entered the fight against Brock at level 9 and one battle away from level 10. I'm not sure if that critical hit mattered against the Geodude, but it's nice to not take any damage. With rock type moves being 4 times super effective, even a hit is going to leave a mark. Onix was faster, which wasn't that surprising. The fact that it used Bind and Tackle was. I'm not complaining because it meant I got a pretty easy win over Brock and can move on. The first challenging bit was Mount Moon, where I literally had no idea where I was going. I first decided to not consult a guide, and that resulted in me reaching everywhere but where I wanted to go. Mount Moon convinced me that a guide is the best use of my limited time, so these videos won't take a month to make. I did catch a Paris because I was in need of a cut user. At level 15, I decided to try to fight my rival before the Nugget Bridge. Let's just say that Charmander either wrecks or nearly wrecks Articuno. Charmander honestly hits pretty hard as we've seen in my Pokemon Gold run. Thinking that I should avoid this for now, I chose to fight Misty and it was worse. I never understood why Ice type attacks are ineffective against Water type, but Water type attacks are neutral against Ice types. All I know is that I need to grind some levels. By some, I mean 3, so Articuno was level 18 when I took on my rival again. This time, Pidgeotto only got off a tackle while Charmander got Articuno down to half health. With that much HP, the Abra and Rattata of course posed no threat. At this point, I wasn't sure if I could fight Misty yet, so I chose to head to Bill's house and fight most of the trainers along the way. I'm starting to think that I need to grind more levels for FireRed because the solo runs seem more challenging for whatever reason. At level 22, I took on Misty and it was closer. I got past Staryu with relative ease and even came close to taking out Starmie. If only a certain someone didn't use a super potion during battle. Knowing that Misty will consistently use a super potion is back to grinding for me. Luckily, it's easier to grind north of the Nugget Bridge compared to just before Cerulean City. With Pokemon like Oddish that can be one-shot by Articuno and a few trainers I haven't fought yet, I was level 24 before I knew it. I hope that over a couple of runs, I'll know the best grinding spots because something tells me I'll be needing them. Then I was ready to fight Misty again. This time I got lucky where I didn't take out Staryu in one hit. It meant Misty used a super potion on it. The rest of the fight indicated that she had one super potion and it was better if she wasted it on Staryu. I then got lucky with Starmie since Articuno didn't get confused once by Water Pulse. It was a grind in taking out Starmie, but it was done and victory was mine. After all the grinding I did to beat Misty, Articuno wrecked my rival on the SSN. The water pulse was very useful against Charmeleon while the rest of my rivals team barely put up any resistance. Water pulse would have been nice in my earlier rival fight. After beating my rival, I got cut and taught it to my Paris. Next we get to the fun puzzle in the Vermilion Gym. I probably took about 1 full minute on it and will say I hate the concept. The fact that they brought it back to FireRed made me shake my head. As for Surge, Voltorb used Screech, which honestly didn't matter given that Pikachu and Raichu were more likely to use special attacks. Pikachu fell to 1 Powder Snow. Raichu did paralyze Articuno with Thunder Wave, but I froze it the very next turn. Overall, the puzzle was harder than the battle itself, and I got myself the 3rd badge. After beating Surge, I headed east of Cerulean City to get through Rock Tunnel. I didn't have Flash, so I relied on a guide to navigate through it. Unlike Gen 2, I actually get enough information to know where I'm at, so the guide was very helpful. Eventually, I'll know it well enough to get through the Rock Tunnel without a guide. For now, I'm glad I don't have to waste more time. Rock Tunnel was a bit challenging due to PP management. I was able to get to Lavender Town before I used up all of my PP, so that was a successful trek. From there, I headed west to Celadon City where I fought Erica. All the battles along the way got Articuno to level 33 when I first arrived at the gym. I took the most direct path towards Erica, but I had to reload from the fight due to Gust speed far too weak. I taught Articuno Aerial Ace, which one-shotted Victory Bell and Tegula. Vileplume depended on the damage rolls since I didn't one-shot it on the first try, but I did after Articuno was fully paralyzed for 2 full turns. I got my 4th badge and it's time to deal with Team Rocket to progress the game. The Rocket Hideout was pretty straightforward. I thought it would be a tougher puzzle, but it was obvious where it needed to go after just a few dead ends and returning to the start. I did get PP up, which I will save for Ice Beam. I can't believe how long Powder Snow can stay relevant. Speaking of Powder Snow, I want to say that it feels like it freezes a lot more often than I expected to. In the fight against Giovanni, I froze Kangaskhan and got a pretty easy win due to Water Pulse easily dispatching both Onix and Rhyhorn. With that win, I get Silph Scope and can return to Lavender Town. The rival fight at the Pokemon Tower was very one-sided. Only Gyarados didn't get one-shotted, but it only dealt 24 health worth of damage from 2 Thrashes. The Rockets guarding Mr. Fuji didn't do any better. By freeing Mr. Fuji, I get the Pokeflute to finally get past the Snorlaxes. However, I chose to head to Saffron City first after I got the tea I needed in Celadon City. I was thinking of using my momentum to keep thrashing the Team Rockets. At Silphco, I was doing fine until I had my rival fight, and it was very one-sided for my rival. I had thought that I had reached a very high level, but my rival reminded me that beating a nearly full team required more than what I had at the time. My first attempt saw me freezing Pidgeot, but Charizard's Flamethrower reliably two-shotted Articuno. I didn't have Stab Water Pulse, and I didn't have any other offensive water moves that I know of. Looks like I'll be fighting every possible Rocket to gain some levels to better prepare for the rival rematch. My rematch with my rival at Silphco didn't happen until Articuno was level 49 when I learned Ice Beam. Pidgeot was one-shotted and Charizard lost 3/4 of his health due to Ice Beam being neutral. Aerial Ace took out Execute and Alakazam while Gyarados was frozen from Ice Beam after using Dragon Rage. This just shows how much base power matters, especially when it's a powerful stab move. After beating my rival, rest of Silphco was a breeze. Ice Beam was either super effective, too strong, or gets a critical hit against Giovanni's team. I didn't even heal from my rival fight because I was that confident in the move. When Silphco finished, I decided to go to Fuchsia City next. If you're wondering, I totally forgot about Sabrina's gym, so that's why I didn't go there first before Fuchsia. Luckily, Fly is available and I can just get anywhere. Against Koga, Muk took 2 hits, while a high roll for Ice Beam can one-shot Weezing. My last rival fight has certainly prepared me well for these fights. After beating Koga, I then remembered about Sabrina and went back there. Aerial Ace was the key move since I thought the special defense of Sabrina's team will make Ice Beam less effective. Aerial Ace really paid off by one-shotting all of Sabrina's Pokemon. I reached Cinebar Island by flying back to Pallet Town and surfing south. This was relatively quick and avoided all the trainer battles along the way, though I do wonder if I should have fought them. Anyways, I then went into the Pokemon Mansion to find the secret key and needed the guide as I had no idea what to do. The guide also helped me find the hidden elixir, which I know I'll be needing for the Elite Four fight. One mistake I made was going into the Pokemon Mansion without any repels, and it took forever. The irony was that the Pokemon on Cinebar had max repel. That's one thing I'll be purchasing next time I come to the island. Anyways, I got the key and went on to take on the gym. I chose to fight all the trainers because I felt I needed the levels against the Pokemon that have super effective moves against Articuno. I had Water Pulse, and that was it. Unlike my rivals Charizard, Blaine's Pokemon are pure fire types, making ice moves not very effective. This is going to be painful for sure. Blaine's Ponyta and Growlithe were easily dispatched with a single Water Pulse. During my first attempt, Rapidash got a critical hit Fire Blast, leaving Articuno with only 68 health. That made it easy pickings for Arcanine, whose Fire Blast hit. My second attempt saw Rapidash not getting a critical hit, which gave Articuno a fighting chance. It was still a close battle since Arcanine took Articuno to 37 health and caused a burn, which further took Articuno down to 14 health. The lifesaver was actually Blaine wasting the hyper potions on Rapidash. Otherwise, burn would probably have finished Articuno off. By a sliver of health, Articuno has beaten Blaine and got me my 7th badge. I fought all the trainers in the Viridian Gym for the experience. Other than a couple of pure poison types and one normal type, Articuno had a super effective move against all the other Pokemon. Then Giovanni was a pushover compared to Blaine because I had super effective moves against his entire team. The 8th badge was pretty easy to acquire, and I can now figure out how to beat the Elite Four. But wait, what about the rival fight? I haven't forgotten about it. The fight went smoothly for me. I was able to one-shot all but Charizard and Gyarados. Charizard was frozen and defrosted on the same turn, so that sucked. The flamethrower it used was the only damaging move that hit Articuno. Gyarados went Rain Dance for whatever reason. This fight was pretty straightforward, and Ice Beam does seem like a better option against Charizard since with Stab it's still stronger than a super effective Water Pulse. The critical hit against Alakazam made it tough to tell if one aerial ace would have been enough. We'll find out when we face Gary later. Let's just say that Articuno struggled a lot against Lorelei. With no super effective moves and most of her Pokemon being very bulky, it was actually a struggle to get through her. Because of Lorelei, I did 3 fairly time-consuming things. First, I went and acquired 30 Pokemon, either through capture or evolving. That allowed me to get leftovers from one of Oak's aids, which will be what Articuno will be holding. Secondly, I went and grinded Articuno up to level 70 so its bulkiness and higher attack will make it easier to break through Lorelei's team. Cloyster was especially annoying with its protect spamming. As a result, my third task was collecting as many PP recovering items throughout the map. There aren't that many, so I still have to use my PP carefully. In the winning attempt against Lorelei, I basically spammed Aerial Ace against her Pokemon until they fainted. Leftovers healed most of the damage dealt throughout the battle, so that item was an absolute must. After recovering the PP of Aerial Ace, I then move on to Bruno. The first Onix and Hitmonchan didn't pose much of a threat. Machamp ate 2 Aerial Aces and managed to get Scary Face off on Articuno. That was actually terrifying since it meant Articuno was now slower than Bruno's team. Surprisingly, Machamp was still slower than my Articuno, so it didn't inflict any damage. The second Onix got an Iron Tail off, but even with a critical hit, it only did 64 damage. Articuno is clearly showing off its bulk here. Hitmonlee did a Mega Kick before I knocked it out. I was worried Machamp had Rock Slide, but after checking, it apparently didn't have it. Scary Face was the best move it could have used, but the rest of his team struggled against Articuno's bulk. You ever get so caught up in your momentum that you forget to heal your Pokemon? That's what happened when I went on to challenge Agatha immediately after I beat Bruno. When Articuno was sent out, I was facepalming. For this special situation, I was going to use Ice Beam to ensure that I maximize the damage I can inflict. After one-shotting the first Gengar, I then faced an Arbok who can take 2 Ice Beams. It used Iron Tail that dropped Articuno's health from 152 to 26 due to a critical hit. I don't know why the two Iron Tails that hit happened to both be critical hits, but this one very nearly made me pay the price for not healing Articuno to full health before the battle. Golbat and Haunter both fell easily to Articuno's Ice Beam. Leftover once again saved the day by healing Articuno enough to survive the last Gengar's Shadow Ball, even if it was a critical hit. That was far closer than I would have liked, but a win is a win. Gyarados ate 2 Ice Beams. The rest of Lance's team got one-shotted by Ice Beam. We'll just move on to Gary. I didn't know that I would go straight into battle by going through the door, so that's an important lesson. It didn't really matter when Gary's Charizard got a critical hit Fire Blast that demolished Articuno. I had to fight Lance again, but it was just spamming Ice Beams, so not much of a fight. It took me many tries, but I eventually got my winning attempt against Gary. Pidgeot and Rhydon both fell to a single Ice Beam. The many attempts made me formulate the plan of using Water Pulse first against Charizard. With Citrus Berry on Charizard, I couldn't two-shot it with Ice Beam. The idea was that assuming I didn't get hit by another critical hit Fire Blast, I needed Charizard to miss one of its Fire Blasts through literally missing or it hitting itself through confusion. The winning attempt saw it missing its second Fire Blast, which allowed me to secure the small victory. I've had runs in the past where Articuno barely survived the fight against Charizard and then Alakazam wipes Articuno out with a Psychic. This time I got a critical hit Ice Beam to knock out Alakazam in one hit. I do think that critical hit mattered as I'm unsure how hard an Alakazam Psychic can hit. Executor and Gyarados both stood no chance and I managed to beat the champion. Pokemon FireRed felt a lot tougher than Pokemon Gold. It might be I'm not as familiar with it, or it does require a lot more investment before you can take on the Elite Four and the Champ. Either way, Articuno was level 70 when it finally beat the Elite Four and the Champ, so it's obvious that fighting most of the battles might be wise. I will need more games before I know for sure, but if a legendary bird like Articuno had its struggles, I'm curious about future runs with non-legendaries. As for the run, I didn't expect Lorelei to be such a big roadblock. The rest of the fight was so much smoother due to how much I had to prepare for the first Elite Four fight. It also made me hate the idea that you needed to catch a certain number of Pokemon to get certain items like leftovers. By the way, I have a correction to make. You don't get leftovers directly from one of the Oak's aids. You get the item finder that lets you find the leftovers west of Celadon City where the Snorlax was at. The held item was very critical to this win and something tells me that I might need it quite often for future runs. That's it for the video. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, and maybe even subscribe. Thank you.